Hello, BookTube. The other day, Cam at Cam Wolf is Writing made a video asking, is wanting a writing career enough? And he didn't call for responses, but he doesn't need to. I know when I'm lurking around in the alleyways, and I made a response video of my own talking about whether or not wanting a writing career is sufficient. If I remember, if I am a good booktuber, I will leave a link to both those videos down below. It was a raucous conversation. I could count on Cam not to take dumb offense, and he didn't, which is great. I was going to say, I wish we could have more conversations like that, but fortunately, in this little group, this little community that we have here, we can have those conversations without risking offense, which is terrific because the conversations are a ton of fun, and clearly from the responses that I've been getting, they touch a nerve. And one response that I've been getting over and over since that little colloquy happened is whether or not I would make a starter kit about writing. I have revived my starter kits on this channel. They are videos suggesting basic approaches to a subject or a period or a person. And after a long while of thinking, I decided to put together a starter kit on writing. And it's all yours for free. So item number 10, we'll work our way down from 10 to number 1. And in this case, number 1 will be the most important, the strongest recommendation when it comes to writing. Number 10 is decide that you want to write, as opposed to dabbling. In my response video to Cam's video, I mentioned that there are 3 end goals of writing, one of which is completely amateur, where you just like the exercise of it and you do it whenever you feel like it. But with no structure, with no plan, with no anything like that. For the purposes of this recommendation on a starter kit, I am dismissing the dabbling. I'm not dismissing it in terms of quality. If you want to do that, that's just fine. Although on Twitter and elsewhere, I know way too many people who do only that and still want you to refer to them as a writer, often refer to themselves as writers in their Twitter handles when they don't actually write. You dabble. But for the purposes of this recommendation, I'm dismissing the dabbling and saying my first recommendation on my writing starter kit is that you have to decide to write. It can't be dabbling anymore, or it won't have a structure or an internal correction mechanism. Then recommendation number 9 is decide what you want to write. And that is the broader world, not just of the specifics of plot, but even broader, the specifics of genre. And for this, I have a small tip. I have a small but urgent piece of advice for you, which is when you are making that decision, choose what you want to read. Do not try to manipulate the market or chase after an audience. Write what you like. Write what you want to write, what you want to read. And if you're telling yourself, if you're one, I don't imagine that any of these people are listening to me now, but someone might find this video who's not. If you're one of those people who's going to respond to that by saying, well, what I'd like is a lot of money, dude. So what I'm going to do is write, a thriller of whatever type is fashionable at the moment. Yeah, I get that response a lot. And in case you think you're breaking new ground, I was getting that response when your parents had yet been born. So I've been getting that response a very long time. And my point is, one of 2 things is going to happen if you pursue that route. If you decide that what to write will be based on the market rather than on what you want to write, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either you're going to become a success by tapping into a market and be a soulless husk, the type of horrible, soulless, a-hole popular author that you have all encountered, and so have I via social media. Or you're going to burn out before you're a third of the way there. You're going to waste a lot of effort and maybe burn out the reservoirs of your writing talent just in general, even if you change your tack to something less ghoulish and manipulative. So my strong piece of advice here for number 9 would be write what you want. If you're good, you'll create an audience for your work. But tapping into a pre-existing audience, it's a mug's game, in my opinion. Then recommendation number 8 for our writing starter kit is decide how you want to write. And here you might think that the first choice would be, do I want to type or do I want to write longhand? And as I've mentioned on this channel before, writing longhand is now a pure exercise in egotism. It's purely hipster, fake anachronistic, hey, look at me. I'm extra genuine. I'm wearing alpine suspenders. I'm wearing clogs. I'm waxing my mustache up to here. I'm driving a gigantic 10-foot tall unicycle to the hipster Brooklyn cafe. It's odious. Writing is for an audience. Writing is for consumption by other people. Real writing, in my opinion, I want to stress that all of these different goals are completely valid, but real writing, in my opinion, is not only for other people, but for people you don't know, for people who don't already like you. That, I think, not only tests your writing, but is the only thing that will improve it, is thinking like that. But for the purposes of this recommendation, we're going to dismiss the affectation of longhand. Oh, I'm talking about other things, like how are you going to do it? Are you going to write, in the mornings? Are you going to write at work on your break? Are you going to write in little bursts or long bursts? That sort of thing. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about here, and that benefits by some thought ahead of time. It's the analogy that I made in my response to Cam was to an Olympic athlete. An Olympic athlete does not just organically sort of fall into the habits that they are going to use in order to achieve their goal. Instead, they hammer out those habits ahead of time, and those habits take precedence over everything else. This can't be, if you want this to happen, it can't be just blindly organic. You have to structure it. You have to sit down and think about, how do I want to write? How do I want to do that? Then recommendation number 7 is decide that you are writing. In other words, again, we don't want just the blindness of a accreted organic process. We want a decision. We want an actual decision, right? If, again, to revert to the analogy of the Olympics, if someone is training for, I used the 100-yard dash in the Olympics. If someone is training for a wind sprint event in the Olympics, they have already decided that they are doing that. This is the equivalent of deciding that you are writing. They have decided that they are doing that, which means their whole world knows that, right? It means their whole world knows that. So, it's not just that they have decided to do that, it's that they've made that decision known. Their friends are not calling them on Thursday night saying, hey, you want to go, bar hopping and eating hot wings the whole time. They know your answer will be no. They know your answer will be, I'm in training. If they asked you that, you would say to the people in your circle, you would say, why are you even asking? You already know this. It's the kind of question you would expect from someone who doesn't know you. We're talking about the Olympics. That rigorous training extends all the way up until you are off the plane and in the Olympic Village, at which point there's nothing you can do to hurt or hamper or help your end performance, which is why Olympic athletes rot like bunnies in the Olympic Village, little compound that's set aside for them. Rampant amounts. I've seen social media postings from adoring, always gay somehow, but adoring men lovingly fawning over, oh, my boyfriend or my husband, he's at the Olympics now, and I couldn't be prouder. I don't care what kind of medal you win, sweetie, you're still the best for me. And right at the moment that tweet is being sent, on the other side of the world, sweetie is running like a bunny with a total stranger because the Olympic athletes abandon everything at the doorway of the Olympic Village. But until that point, it's their entire world. They have decided to do that, and you should do that too. I know that the writing world is full of comforting folklore. The story about Jane Austen, who used to be, knitting or darning or whatever in the living room, and when she would write on a little piece of paper on the arm of her chair, and then if she heard footsteps coming, she would hide the writing and get back to her domestic chores. First of all, don't believe stories like that, okay? Don't believe stories like that. The minute that Jane Austen made even 100 pounds as a result of her writing, everyone in her circle knew to respect it. She did not have to hide it and was not ashamed of it. But more importantly, that kind of folklore, those kinds of stories, tend to glamorize writing being sneaked away from the rest of the world. You occasionally get a writer who will have a book published, a debut novel, always a debut novel. And the writer will try to engage in some howling lie about how no one knew I was writing a book until I got it published. And every once in a while, that story is true and not a lie, but it's destructive either way. You should let people know. Once you decide that you are going to embark on a writing project, you should let people know so that they respect it. And you should make sure they do. You have enough obstacles, you have enough problems, there are enough struggles in a writing project without the rest of your world struggling with you too. Oh, come on. I know you said you're writing, but we want to go out. And you went out with us, just a month ago. Go straight for those air quotes. Get rid of those air quotes. If those air quotes are being used and you want to write, that person has to learn not to use them anymore. And then the simple explanation. A month ago, I was not writing. I was not embarked on a project. Now I am. And so don't ask. I'm involved. I'm committed to something else. It's like I was trying to say in my response to Cam. You have to do that. If the space isn't there, no one has the space just to organically fall into doing this. You have to aggressively fight for space in your day. Most people do. I don't, but most of you have jobs, family, shrewish wives, hygiene, all sorts of obligations, maybe even some ill-advised offspring. You have a lot of things contending on your time. If you're going to do a writing project that's going to have an end result, you have to carve out time for it, and not just the time for doing it. There has to be a fence around that time that people know about. So that's recommendation number 7. Then recommendation number 6 is you have to decide that you will persevere. There are going to be little setbacks here and there, maybe even major setbacks. Everything's going to feel like a setback at first. These are new muscles that you are getting into shape if you're starting for the first time. But even if you're not starting it for the first time, the muscles can still use strengthening, especially since most writers take time off in between projects. There are going to be setbacks. There are going to be little things like, oh, I've got a head cold, or I've got COVID, or, I got called into work and an extra shift and I wasn't expecting it, and it cuts right into my writing time. And also another little setback that too few writers pay any attention to when they start out, but it's major, and that's ennui. That's just simply you being a little bored with the process. You have to be prepared to persevere through those difficulties rather than put them on pedestals. And that flies flat in the face of the mind frame of the 20th century, especially for people under the age of 35, which is if anything even remotely construable as negative happens, your first response should be to make that negative thing your whole life. So it's not just that you're not going to persevere through it. It's that you're going to start to identify with it, you're going to hook up with an online community for it, and you're going to embrace it. This is not just a little setback. This is not just a piece of ennui or a bad mood or a little bit of free-floating sadness or a little bit of difficulty paying attention for long periods of time until I retrain that part of my brain. It's not that. Instead, it's a community I will now identify with. It's a life-altering thing, and I probably deserve to be hired at your company because this is true for me. Maybe I deserve reparations. Maybe I deserve your sympathy online, no matter what crazy cockadoodle stuff I say. I realize that's the 21st century idea. The 21st century mind frame is to elevate and venerate these kinds of little shortcomings. But if you want to get this done, if you want to get writing done, you have to not only not venerate them, you have to learn, you have to train yourself to persevere straight through them. Because they are going to happen. Then recommendation number 5 is decide that you will write without editing. Writing and editing are two completely different processes, and there is no way for them to work together. A moderate amount. If you write 3 pages one day, which should be your bare minimum, that should be your bare minimum, is 3 pages a day. Your bare minimum. I'd be much happier with 5, but 3 a day. Once you've got a project, not just for the sake of it, but once you've got a project, 3 pages a day. And if you write 3 pages a day and then you put them aside and you do other stuff and you let your brain recoup and regenerate, and then you go to write the next day's 3 pages and realize that the way this story is now going makes a little detail in the first 3 pages wrong, you have my permission to go back to those 3 pages and change that little detail. But only that. You must not write with the brakes on. You must not do that. You must not write thinking, well, is this sentence good enough to last eternity? Okay? It only has to be good enough to get you to the next sentence. You can edit. You can revise later. The reason why I know some people, and I know some operatically ridiculous examples of this, where people have talked to me literally for years about the thing they are writing, literally for years talking about their project. And then 10, 5, 6 years later, they say to me, so you've been really patient listening to all this. Would you like to read it? I say, yes, I would absolutely like to read it. And they hand me 7 pages. All the rest of which has been edited away over the course of this. This has all been just a navel-gazing, narcissistic exercise in killing your darlings. A dumb piece of writing advice, if I ever heard it. There's not much. There's not much that will cause me to blurt out a filthy expletive in public. But that will cause me to do it. Absolutely. So don't cause me to do that. Don't cause me to do that. Instead, when you are writing, cover the pages. Get your pages done. Move on. If you've got a rough idea in your head of what you want to cover, what you want to happen in your 3 pages today, and keep in mind that's a bare minimum. I'd rather it be 5. But if you've got a rough idea in your mind of what you want to cover in your 3 pages and you get to that and it just doesn't feel right or you want to go back and revise, don't do that. Just keep going until you get to the end of those pages and lock them away and get on to something else and do 3 more tomorrow. When it's all done, when the whole thing is finished and you've typed the end, we will edit it together. Because you shouldn't edit it alone. We will edit it together and that will be fine, but that's a different process. Generating the material is what separates you from a non-writer, not editing. So recommendation number 5 is write without editing. And if you say, I just can't do that, I'm a perfectionist, I'm such a perfectionist. Okay, okay. For one, you can't claim to be a perfectionist if you're a tobacco addict. Okay, but no. But 2, you can be a perfectionist in the editing process. Writing is not about that. You won't get anything done. You'll be your, as I mentioned, my standard phrase, you'll be your own worst enemy if you do that. So don't. Then recommendation number 4 in our writing starter kit is decide on your specifics. And this is the descendant of the earlier recommendation about deciding what you want to write. Once you've decided what you want to write, that's the first thing you have to do. But you want to decide on your specifics because you don't want them popping up and surprising you in the middle of your 3 pages of writing a day. You don't want to be writing and have a character pop up and say, oh, didn't you know that about me? And they will. I guarantee you they will if you don't figure it out first. So spend a little time, as bloodless and mechanistic as it seems, spend a little time deciding what you will write. What is the shape of this thing? What is the plot of this thing? What is the plot twist of this thing? Who are these characters? What, given the character that you are envisioning one character to be, how would they respond to this other character? Not how you want them to respond, but how would they? You've created these characters. How would they actually respond to each other? That's not part of the writing process. That's part of the prep process. You have to figure that stuff out so that it doesn't surprise you when you're writing, because that will eat into your time. The time that you are spending on, what was it again? 3 pages a day. 3 pages a day. You have characters suddenly saying to you, well, didn't you know that? That's bad. And they will, because they're a-holes. They will if you give them a chance. So don't. Figure all that stuff out ahead of time. Then recommendation number 3 is decide where you want to write. And I know that this is a little dodgy for a lot of people, especially young people, especially people who are so young. I know quite a few of you watch these videos. You're so young that you don't actually live in your own place yet. You live in a place that where you're living there is on the sufferance of someone else, happens to be your parents or your guardians, but it's not your place. Nevertheless, it helps to have a place to write. It very much helps to have a place to go. A place that has been completely sculpted to help with the process. As I was saying, the process itself has enough problems. It has enough obstacles. It's hard enough to do as it is. The last thing you want is to leave obstacles in place to it that you can fix ahead of time. So tell the people in your life, I'm writing for the next 2 hours. I'm not free. Don't bother me. Tell the people in your life essentially that you are prepping for a marathon, that you are prepping for a 100-yard dash at the Olympics. And also, it helps to, in addition to fencing off the work, it helps to have a place. It really does. I know that seems very 1950s dad who has a den or a study. It doesn't have to be that, but it helps to have a place that you can go, where you can go. And close the door, even if it's just a metaphorical door, although I strongly urge a physical door. I have been told, I have many, over the years, I've given this kind of writing advice many, many times. And I've had many, many people, including many young people, tell me, well, no, the physical setup here just prevents, it's not possible. And occasionally in happier days when this happened in, for instance, a concentration of students, I would always challenge them. I would say, okay, well, if that's true, show me. Show me the setup that you're saying can't be done. And instantly it was obvious what could be done to make a setup. But most of the time, that's not true. I'd be willing to bet, as you know, check your privilege a moment as it is, I'd be willing to bet that probably upwards of 90% of the people who are listening to this video already have a space of their own where they can close the door on the outside world, where they can close the door on anyone they don't want to be in that space. If you do, use that space. I know some of you are probably thinking, no, I get my best writing done when I'm sipping my soy latte and vibing to the crowd at the cafe. Look at what you actually get done when you are peacocking for strangers at a cafe. I know a lot of people say, I get my best writing done at Starbucks or wherever. You don't. There's only one definition for your best writing, and you're using the wrong one. You're using my best editing, my best finished product, which we've already covered. That has no part in writing. The best writing has only one measure, and that is, did you hit your page count today? And is this the 100th day in a row that you've hit your page count? That's it. That's the only yardstick. 3, I'm letting you go at 3. I should have started with a hard line of 5, but we'll say 3. That's the only yardstick. And if you use that as your only, that is your only yardstick for how successful your writing was today. Did you get 3 pages done? And if you look at the time you spend peacocking at the cafe, you will see universally that it is not your best writing if you use the one and only yardstick that Steve is allowing you. It's your worst writing. You get a sentence done, paragraph, you're checking your phone, you're discreetly checking who's checking you, checking your phone. Ridiculous waste of time. You can do it. If the communal aspect feels good to you, you can do it, but don't count it as writing time. Your writing time is generating material. Your writing time is piling up pages, okay, so that we have something to edit in a year. Your writing time is writing, not anything else. It's not swanning at a cafe. So you decide where you want to do it, and the where should be a space of your own, a room of your own where you can close the door. Then recommendation number 2 for our writing starter kit is decide which writing books you want in order to help you with your writing journey. Is it Stephen King's massively popular book on writing? Is it my beloved John Gardner and his couple of books on the craft of writing? Is it some other basic, plot structure or something to help you with the mechanics, or how actually do you refine these characters in the 3rd and 4th draft? Recommendation number 2 for your writing starter kit is to select which of those books resonate with you the most. Buy them and then burn them. Get rid of them completely. Get rid of them completely. All writing books like that are wastes of time. They exist for only one reason. They are popular for only one reason with their target demographic, which is you, a writer. They are popular for only one reason. There's nothing that writers like you like more than a reason to procrastinate from writing. There's nothing you want more than that, oddly enough. And there is no more virtuous seeming way to procrastinate from writing than to read a book about how to be a better writer. Well, you're not going to call that a waste of time, are you? I'm reading a book about how to be a better writer. I am calling that a waste of time. And you know it is. You know it is. You know that it is just you procrastinating. A writing book can no more teach you how to write the books that will eventually be yours than a workout book can teach you how to have a fingerprint. You'll have it or you won't. It'll be yours. It's yours alone. You're growing it on your own. All of the technical sage advice, and I learned this, kids, all of that is worthless. Absolutely worthless. It was good for that one writer. It's not good for any other writer. The only purpose it serves is for you to drink it up so that you have a virtuous seeming reason not to be writing. And that takes us to my strongest recommendation for your writing starter kit, which is to write. It is to write. Start today. No more procrastinating. No more excuse making. Start today. 3 pages a day until the story you have decided on is over. So if you can't start writing today, you can at least start some of the other recommendations here. Decide what you're going to write, when you're going to write, where you're going to write. Figure out the minor details. Figure all that out. You can have that done by the end of today. Today, you could start writing your project on Monday morning or Monday afternoon. Oh, morning's not good for me. Ooh. Or Monday at work on your break or whatever. You could start tomorrow with the actual writing of 3 pages a day. You could do that tomorrow. No book in the world will do anything other than delay you from that. And doing that will teach you more than any book in the world ever could. You'll make your own mistakes. You'll figure out your own way to do it. When it comes time, when a year later you have hit the end on a finished project that was done by accumulating pages 3 at a time per day, with no days off, no breaks, no excuses, no little setbacks, no ennui, no nothing. When you come to the end of that project and you hit the end and you take a deep sigh and you come over here for an excessive amount of wine that you have earned, then the next week you and I can start the editing. And then we can talk about all of the advice that's in all of those horse-pucky books that you have wasted so much time reading. We can talk about all that later. It's all about revising anyway. The lessons that will come to you from doing and from no other place. And you put off the doing. Massively, you do. Massively. So my number one recommendation for your writing starter kit, first of all, it doesn't have any books on it, but my number one recommendation is to write. Now, you might not right now when you're hearing this video have the ground cleared for writing. I admit, as I've said in these earlier recommendations, a small amount of ground clearing is necessary. You should have a plan. You should make sure the plan is known to other people, especially the ones who might interrupt you. You should have a place. You should have the how you will do it. In other words, throw away your yellow legal pads, all right? My dude, bro, brethren, throw away your yellow legal pads. The writing that's being done by longhand on paper has to be typed at some point anyway if you're going to share it with other people, and you are going to share it with other people, or you are a mere dabbler. So throw away the longhand and decide what you're going to do. How you're going to write, where you're going to write, when you're going to write, that you're going to write so that people know you're going to write. You could do all of that today. All of that prep work could be done today so that tomorrow you start writing 3 pages a day in and day out, no matter what, until it's done. And that is the number one recommendation for a writing starter kit. Write. You have to write. You have to do it in a massive torrent. You are running out of time in about 10 minutes. You're going to be dead. You are visibly older today than you were to my eyes yesterday. You don't have any time, and yet what have you done in the last year, in the last 12 months, since last April? What have you done but waste time? In gigantic truckloads, you have wasted time. So, number one recommendation for a writing starter kit is to stop doing that. Stop doing that. You're the only person in the history of the world who can tell the stories you are going to tell. You had best get about it. It's tomorrow. So set everything up today. Feel free to email me with any kind of organizational help, tips like that you want. But don't email me because you're putting things off. I am not going to become an instrument of your procrastination. You have enough things like that on your own. I think you can do it without asking any advice of mine. Get to it. Get to it. So set all that up so that tomorrow you can start. That's your writing advice. That's your writing starter kit. No books. Books are a bad idea when it comes to a writing starter kit. Instead, clear the ground and then get to work. Get to work right away. Good Lord, time is running out. Oh, on that cheery note, we'll wrap things up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.